Okay, so the Chip Perry
Yeah, whatever you want.
project.
Yeah.
You want to update me on that?
Yeah. So when I started, it was about 2 years ago, and the idea was I'd written sort of small pieces of work and always recorded them. That was something I was very like focused on. As soon as I had my first experience of actually recording my own music, it was far greater than ever actually just writing something on guitar and it never really existing. I got immense pleasure from hearing my own stuff back to me. Because it's, you know, whatever, narcissistic, whatever. But you know, there's just something really gratifying about it, and then also being able to share it and not having to, you know, play it again. So anyway, I decided I was going to write a full album, and I was using an alias called Trip Perry, which now I've very recently changed in the last week or so. But that was 2 years ago. I had some stuff in my mind, and I wrote it, and I was recording it as I went, kind of similar to you, not as a sort of structured setup. I was actually I started off in the living room. I've moved flats in between then.
Right.
But yeah, I started recording as I went, but I made it. The issues I encountered was, you know, whereas I was saying where I was recording, you know, the full song, but only a quarter
So
of the
you'd
way.
you have like a verse, which you'd done your full production stack on.
Basically, I would write a jingle on my guitar. You know, most of the time it would come from a guitar or a piano. And I go, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record something, because that's how I was writing whilst recording. It would work for me. And then, I'd stack it, build it all out, put the drums on there. And that would be like just leading up to the chorus. And then I'd be like, oh shit, I haven't got a chorus yet.
Right.
And typically I wouldn't even write words until the very end of a song. So I'd have a full song written without any words. And that has worked for me in the past, but as time's gone on, it doesn't work for anymore. So that led to me being delayed for 2 years. And then only this Friday gone, it was finally published. So
but that's kind of remarkable then, that because this, what I'm struggling with is, so I write full songs because I generally my experience of recording really has only been what I've done in here so far, and one other trip to a recording studio with an old band that I was with where we did one EP. And I loved that experience. I remember saying at the time that at the time I was nearly as long as I've known Ruth, so 14 years or so ago. At the time I said, you know, if that's my day job, if I could choose a day job, it would be in the recordings, not necessarily being in a band as such,
sound engineer or whatever,
just being in the recording studio creating shit. And so but other than that, I played in a couple of bands, mostly acoustic gigs with James. Like that's the only other sort of like stuff that I've done. So I tend to write full songs acoustic guitar because I'm performing them. Like
it's just because your sort of I don't know, your experience of music, and that
and all my learning has been that way as well.
I'm the polar opposite, because I started off as a drummer, and so I used to play, you know, drums for people, but then when I sort of started learning guitar, that was very much around the time I started recording. And one thing I have learned for sure is that now if you said, look, here's 600 quid, 800 quid to go and rent a studio for the day, because that is what it will cost, I think I would feel less comfortable, because there's some guy there and I don't tend to go anywhere. You know, I wouldn't have a song written. So I like the fact that I can press a button and record and then retake, and then it's like somebody else. It's like you standing behind somebody making lasagna and you're going, oh, you do that. And actually I'd rather just make it myself. Provided you can, of course, you know, put together the equipment, which you can do, but you know, it's just
and you know, I agree. Like the other thing is, James and I decided we were going to record an EP, and it was an old friend of Ruth's. He's built a recording studio in his back garden, you know, which is not too dissimilar from this, right? But you know, a bit more soundproofed and, you know, purpose built. So and we went down and recorded with him, but my biggest takeaway was I liked what was produced. Lovely guy, and he, you know, and it sounds good, and I like what's done. But my main takeaway was, fuck, that was nerve-wracking.
You've got some guy, and typically in the music world, you kind of, you know, if you ever even walked into a music shop and you want to play a guitar, you know, the pressure of somebody kind of looking over you, and it's just not, it's not right.
I don't know. No.
So yeah, I think the comfortability of recording at home, and you know, that
Yeah,
for me,
it does. That's my biggest. That, I suppose, that would be my biggest issue. Really, is just endlessly not finishing anything.
yeah,
You know, and I'm still doing like, and I, you know, the other thing is I don't really take advantage. I'm always looking for the perfect take. Like, rather than just taking the view of, you know, I could, I think if I took a view and said, right, I'm just going to play 20 takes of everything. Like, once I've worked out what it is, like, it might take me, I'll do probably 10 or 15 takes before I've even worked out exactly what part I want to play. But
yeah.
once I've got to the point of, right, I know that part, that's what I want, I'm going to record 20 takes of it now, and then I'm going to stop. I would probably be far better off than I am, because there's bound to be exactly what I want in those 20 takes. But I'm still 60 takes later trying to nail it because I want to perform it properly.
That's
You know what I
also
mean?
that's also one of the biggest problems I think that's dawned on me, is probably the right expression, because you the benefit of being on your own is that you can do as much as you want, but actually the benefit of having a producer, and why there are, you know, if you just look at it, there are standout producers in history that we know are like very good at what they do, and I go, well, what is it that they do that's so great? But actually it's them being able to define a certain sound, or define, like, actually, hang on a minute, that's great, let's work with that, and moving with certain things. So basically a second pair of ears is
Yeah.
really helpful, even if they're just somebody to sound off. And a lot of the time, you know, people don't really know anybody else that kind of does write music or records on their own. So it's a very, very difficult world to sort of master and navigate. And actually, you know, it's one that is very rewarding if you get it right. But yeah, it's trial and error. And
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm at this happy place where I don't really care what happens to it.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because it is that, you know, when I said it was a 360 process earlier, when I was saying, you know, creating the video content drives the writing project, you know, but at the same time, it's driving the therapy. Like, this is the reason I picked it up, as I said earlier, when I sort of started the writing thing, was I picked it up out of frustration. You know, it was something that just came out. Like, it's always that, and it's that I'm always trying to capture. I'm not trying to capture anything other than that. So I really don't care what happens to the music. Like, if people like it, it's great. But, you know, it really is. But and the other thing is that, you know, I'd love to learn, and this is it's so fascinatingly complex. The creation process itself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm just really into that whole thing. But
I think
what I was going to say earlier about the fact that you can write, because listening to the stuff, the Chip Perry stuff, like, it feels really organic. So it's interesting that you out of like that stuck place where you were, you've managed to glue it all together.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I've always, even when I was younger, when I first started writing, whilst I was like dabbling with like studio experience, which wasn't in paid studios. I've only
But when was this?
This was fucking years ago. This was probably when I was like 18 or 19, and
So you came out of college and stuff playing drum in bands.
I went to sixth form for 1 year, and that's because it had a studio in it, and I knew it had a studio in it. So I was like,
high school as well.
No, so I just started to play. Like, I was teaching myself guitar and piano from like 16 to 17, and I was just literally buffling, you know, fumbling around, not having a clue what I was doing, and it kind of timed quite well when I got into to this sixth form, basically. And I was there for a year, didn't attend any classes after the first 2 weeks, because I just already learned how to use Cubase. You know, I had a very basic understanding of how to record on Cubase, and there was only me and one other guy who actually was on that music course. And I think they shut it down maybe the year later. But they had a studio for it. So basically, we just used our own sort of school studio for a year with nobody else using it. and we just wrote really. It's on YouTube. It's not great, but Everett and Higgins on YouTube, and there's about maybe 10 songs on them, 10 songs, and they're very kind of popish. I think they're quite poppy, but you can tell there's probably a bit of depth in them somewhere. But other than that, but I would just make up the words on the spot, on the stage, on the in the recordings, because I had a lot of things in my head. You're a teenager, you're feeling upset, whatever, and it just came to you. That was the best thing. I think the problem is when you don't have anything to sing about, but you've got a really nice riff. So I would always record it, and then songs always do sound better when they're layered. So yeah, layering songs was something I love to do. And then at the end, after, normally I'll export that, whatever it was, the first quarter, export it onto my headphones. I'll go for a walk. I'll go for a bike ride. And that might take me 2 weeks of doing the same thing. I'll just sit there. I'll just go find a nice park, a nice lake.
Right.
And it will slowly come to me, and I'll use voice notes to record my little, that might sound good.
Okay.
My girlfriend will look at me, and I'm in bed going like, oh. and then eventually, something will happen, or something in your life will like trigger a feeling, and then you can apply that to that track that you kind of put.
Right.
But I wouldn't advise writing that way because it sucks. But I would go around it.
I think that would be true of anyone's methods, right? If you tried to force anyone. Writing is such a kind of like I suppose it's kind of in the same way as like you can't teach someone to be a stand-up comic.
No.
It's something you do or you don't do. Yeah. And if that's the case, then you're naturally like the only way you can do it is the way you do it, kind of thing. I do think that, and the same with actually, and I wouldn't count myself as being a good musician in like any sort of technical terms, but I think that ability to get a feel out of an instrument and make it sound meaningful to someone, that's also something that you could teach the technique, but that doesn't give you the music bit.
Yeah, it's just a weird, it's a very weird thing. In fact, one thing I've very recently started watching, which is probably worth watching, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, with a pinch of salt, is the Stuart Copeland from The Police. He's done a 3-part series on the BBC about music and kind of like what it actually means, why people enjoy it, and what it is that makes things sound nice and interesting. I think the more I've delved and sort of looked into other people's music and watching loads of crappy videos on YouTube of very well accomplished songwriters and actually where they come up with things, how they come up with things. Yeah, there's so much content out there now that I've certainly brushed up on areas that I didn't think about, even just from very simple stuff like where I'm going to place my microphone if I'm recording my acoustic guitar.
Oh, fuck yeah. Like Rick Beato is my I'm a disciple of Rick Beato. Like totally. Like I understand maybe 1/3 of the things that he says, but you can watch like his video on EQ. For how the pros use EQ, like bass, guitar. Here's the basics. Yeah. That's just that kind of, and he presents so well. Yeah, I agree. And it occurs to me like you're right. Like the business is so weird and such an odd thing to navigate because essentially it's a snake oil selling.
Exactly.
But they're selling snake oil to the musicians. Yeah,
everything's out there to completely rip you, even if you're down to the granular things that simple people like you and me who are just writing stuff, to publish it, you've got to go through a middleman, and that's a subscription based thing, or the plugins, or just Cubase, or whatever DAW you're using to record on, which of course they're products and you need to pay for them. There's absolutely no doubt about that, but it's a very funny landscape. And then you're interested in sort of, you want to promote your music and get somebody to hear it. Well, I'll put it on a playlist for you, and that'll be £100. But it turns out that the people on the playlist are actually just everybody else who's paid £100, and collectively you gather listens, but you don't get anything like real. So I've been down many avenues of it, and it's just a funny old world. It's a very funny world. And I read something which is probably not new that most people probably have read, which was the music industry has nothing to do with music. And I thought that was a really, really poignant thing.
I'd agree with you. Yeah. So you wrote an article?
Me? No, I read I
Oh,
probably
right.
I read a headline.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, no, no. I yeah, agree. It doesn't. It's an industry, but and you know, all of that is in a very weird place at the moment. But so yeah, so I've got these two things separated out, um, like on the creation of content type thing.
Yeah.
And like I say, I don't really care where it goes, but I would be interested in like um, what I was saying. I can't get my head around the
Podcast stuff.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So I've got a podcast which I've done for like 2 years or something,
Yes.
and it's it's a very, 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 very saturated area. So it's incredibly difficult to sort of get any traction. However, you would be at a massive advantage already because you have a subject and a topic, which means that you have a
Yep.
market that you can tap into. My podcast has nothing to do with anything. It's just me and somebody talking shit. So we haven't got any like
Yeah. Yeah.
any way of even like sort of tracking down who would be interested in it because
Right. Okay.
we don't
What's
have
it called?
like, it's called irrelevant suggestions,
Okay.
which suits it, I suppose. But yeah, so it's very easy actually when you look at it. Basically, similar to releasing stuff onto Spotify and Apple, it's the same thing actually. It's
Okay.
just that the companies that do it are different. So the middlemen that do it are different. So rather than using somebody, there are things like Ditto Music. I wouldn't probably go through them for your music because they don't
Right.
pay you your royalties, even if it's like £30. They just don't respond to you. But somebody, the people I use is a company called Podbean.
Okay.
And they're actually quite a big company, and people listen to their podcasts through that as well. But
Okay.
effectively, you just need to create an account through one of these people, and Podbean is who I use. And effectively, once you've created your account and you upload your first episode, you then take your, I think it's the RSS feed, and then you copy that into iTunes. And then you create that's how you create an actual podcast account, and it goes to the podcast area. It also gets uploaded to Spotify, etc.
So just do that through my Apple ID.
You can use your own Apple ID, so it's actually quite straightforward. You just need to choose an account or a company to push it through,
Right.
and most of them will probably
So they
charge
create
you.
the RSS feed, and then
They
that
create,
RSS feed allows you to create the podcast element in iTunes.
you need a middleman company, and they'll do it, and it'll talk you through it because
Right.
so many people have got a podcast. It's really
Yeah.
simple. But it's very it's very beneficial, and it's labor intensive. Like with our podcast, we do YouTube videos, we do obviously the recordings and stuff, and even with like the YouTube videos, we have different camera angles, and I have to go through and edit them, and cut and rewatch it and edit. And actually, we're probably making up for lack of content. So I think with a decent subject matter that you guys have certainly probably got, then at least you'll be able to target.
I mean, that's the other interesting thing. Like the 10-minute YouTube videos, like I've restricted them to 10 minutes for editing reasons.
Yeah.
Like I can literally, so I'm using an old iPhone 6 as the camera.
Yeah.
I bought this desk so I can run everything through the desk and then into an interface which takes, so it's not going into, like, it's separate from the door and everything. It's like its own broadcast sort of thing. So I can literally turn the iPhone on and have the computer running at the same time. And then I use OBS.
Yeah, the live streaming.
Oh my God. Well, I don't use it for the live streaming because I use it to just record the video and then I actually edit it in Shotcut. I don't do it live. Because I want to be able to control to a certain extent. I've got this kind of dilemma where I don't want to put a whole song or a whole, do you know what I mean, or a whole idea up. I want to keep it short, snappy.
Yeah.
But
how far along are you, by the way, in terms of the actual album? Is it?
So I've got a website which is soundshed.org, and I put a little timer on there. And the idea is that the day before my birthday is the release date, which is the 25th of November.
Oh, great.
So I'm kind of not working. I'm kind of working again. And this is this 360 idea, right? Like I keep making the videos. If I keep making the videos, I'm going to have to keep creating the content. And if I keep creating the content, I'll keep writing songs. I've got enough songs in my bank that I could probably do the album just straight out, but I want to take each one kind of organically and just sort of like strip it of what it was before, and turn it into something else. But it's like, so I never know where the balance is. Like in those little 10-minute ones, at the moment, I feel like I'm finding my way a bit, like to a point where I've got a bit of a patter, if that makes sense. It's like the same as training people on guest center. Like, just I need to go into that training mode.
Well, it's difficult actually, yeah, to create, to narrate stuff, on the fly.
Yeah,
people don't really understand that. It's fucking weird, and it's difficult.
it is weird.
Yeah, it takes a bit of getting used to, and yeah, I think luckily you've got a really interesting thing, and actually, you can look back on this, which I'm jealous of. Look back on this and over the years you can actually rewatch the journey of it. I love it. I think it's
well,
really cool.
yeah, and it's well, thank you. Firstly, that's nice to say, but yeah, I do kind of think it's kind of this. It is kind of that thing. It's kind of like I'm realizing, I'm probably at a point in my life where it's like, well, what else are you going to do? Like, you've been hankering after doing this your whole life. Like, and I was saying to James and I, unfortunately, recorded a podcast before we decided to record it. And, it was one of the things that came out of that is this very much feels for both of us like a lifetime project.
Yeah.
Like, there's no end to it. And it's the first time in my life where I've entered into something with that mindset. So it feels like the building up of the equipment in here and everything has just been part of the process to get where I get to this point where I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
that's the beauty of it as well. Like everything now is accessible to do at your own home.
Yeah.
And years ago you couldn't do that, and that's why people were going to studios and stuff. But some of my favorite artists now don't record in a studio. And most of them, I don't think, record in a studio unless you're. I think there is a creative, like you wouldn't go to if you're a painter, you don't go and, not that it has ever been the way, but you'd rather paint on your own than paint in front of other people. Or I don't know, being creative on your own for me is what I get pleasure from, being on my own and my own space. And as you used earlier, that release of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of like a lifetime project, I think it's great. I think I think it's just fantastic. I think, are you definitely going to put it out there in terms of like playing it on?
Yeah. So I've got, well, there's various conversations that I've had with, so I've got like a very, a close group of 4 friends. James, who is probably who I'm speaking to the most, and I've known them all that, like we all went to sixth form together, and that's probably like you. That's kind of where my, like, there was an initial rush of I'm going to be in bands and do that kind of stuff, which all died off. It had a bit of a renaissance when I went to university in my 20s, and then again died off. Yeah, but they're my 4 oldest friends. So there's been talk about us maybe doing it as a project where we would perform live, and James has got a whole album's worth of songs that he's trying to record. So there's kinds of ideas around that. Whether any of that will come to fruition, who knows? But I do have both James and I are committed to kind of having something that we will distribute, like, and if the opportunity ever came to perform it live, we would do it. Like, we've played together before the lockdown sort of hit. We were starting to ramp up the number of acoustic gigs we were doing because we were using that as a writing project as well.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I'm committed to producing and distributing something. Sorry, my wine box isn't.
Is that a box of wine you've got there?
Yeah, so I'm drinking fizzy water and red wine.
What's the sort of science behind that then?
The science behind that is that it reduces my wine content by quite a lot of amount of wine that I drink, and it increases my water drinking content from where I was drinking fucking none to 100% better. Like,
does it taste okay, or is it?
Well, the purpose of it is to just, because I just dislike water and I can't drink fizzy drinks. So I touch a wine in there, it gives a bit of the taste of wine, but I don't end up destroying my liver, and I stay hydrated.
I love water. It's literally my favorite drink of all time.
stand it. I like this has to. I can drink fizzy water because it kind of reminds me of soda. I grew up in America, essentially
Oh, you did, didn't you? You were
American
working.
Air Force Base, so close enough.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So we're both kind of expat kids. In fact, the first song I ever wrote was "Expat Refugee," and it was the exact same chords as Maggie May, the first guitar song I ever learned.
Right. So you just copied that and
Yeah, why not? Well, one thing I've realized actually is as I've kind of got more and more into guitar, and I don't know about you, but whenever I like, you know, certain songs will strike you. For me, anyway, certain songs will strike me, and I'll play that same song for probably 2 weeks, and then I'll hate it, you know, for a while, and then I'll get back into it. But it could be someone like Joni Mitchell. It could be someone like Led Zeppelin, who recently
right.
I really got well back into, and I ran out and bought an acoustic guitar, and I was like, "Fuck it, am I going to buy it?" And I bought a mandolin as well, because I was like, I really want to emulate that sound,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's funny that yeah, like when I then look up and try and learn, you know, how they write that song, because then I can take those notes that like made a feeling for me and then recompose them myself, and that's kind of typically how I started writing anyway.
Right.
But the more and more I've done that, the more and more I realize, like, actually, what changes a song is not the bass chords, because I've realized that a lot of the classic stuff, you know, within reason, is standard variations of like G, D, A, C,
Sure.
etc. B, but then it's actually the top half of it. You know, all the sort of top end sounds, the extra piano and whatever's on top is actually what completely changes the identity of the song.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
That is interesting. Like
I've learned, yeah.
Because I mean, and I suppose that's yeah. I think the biggest barriers to me actually, one of the biggest barriers to me actually getting to a point where I do hit that November will be finding some way of producing it so that it does make sense in that way, if you know what I mean. Like, because I am like rewriting it from the bottom up. Like I just don't know how because I've never done it before. I don't know how it glues together. Like I don't know what a finish line looks like. Right? I mean, completely uncharted territory, which is fine. That's part of what's enjoyable about it. But I do need to, and you know, it's a benchmark that I kind of have to set for myself in some respects.
Well, I think there's some things that, you know, I probably try and live by, and I certainly don't ever hit them really.
Right.
but
Sounds like golf.
I think that's probably exactly like golf. I'm not a golf player, but you know, from what I've seen in films. But I'd say, yeah, I think, you know, in terms of production wise, you know, you want it to be in sync. And I know that sounds like an obvious thing, but you know, that in itself is quite hard to achieve, depending on your capability. You know, if you're a jack of all trades and you're playing every instrument, it's very difficult to actually, you know, become like practice every part of that song, especially if you've written that song that day or that hour. Like, for example, I wrote a song 2 hours ago and I've already finished it. I've recorded it. Is it going to sound good? Probably not. But for me, I've gone through it, and
so
I've kind of
from conception to complete product in 2 hours.
Yes.
Nice.
You. But the thing is, I've
taken me 5 years.
No, I've got very, but that's only because I released this project on Friday, which was my album, which was basically me saying, you know, I wrote on my post or whatever, I said, you know, this is kind of this is 2 years worth of stuff that I never really put my heart into at the start, and then I found it very difficult to re-emerge myself in it. Thankfully, I've kind of completed it, and here it is, and you know, it is what it is. I'm not promoting it at all in terms of like financial promotion. I've just said it's there, and then, you know, I'm rebranding to sort of, you know, kind of update myself, because I came up with the name Trip Perry like 6 years ago when I was really heavily influenced by which I still am, but you know, like Californian sort of sun-soaking melancholic melodies, and I love that whole thing. And then know, when we were in LA, you know, we went to LA on conference or whatever, and you know, I kind of had a rude awakening. Actually, I thought LA was a bit of a dump. But,
And if it was then, it fucking is now.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I just thought, oh yeah, okay, right, I see.
Yeah, it's a
And
bit of an illusion.
well, yeah, I spoke to my dad about it, and he's pretty in my eyes, as everybody's dad is. You know, I thought he's quite smart, and he was like, well, yeah, the reason you kind of see it like that is because it is it's what you see through a TV screen. It's a production. It solely exists for the sake of kind of TV or
Yep.
film. The whole reason that like Hollywood opened up and that whole enterprise of, you know, what it is
Yep.
kind of came about was because the West of America was so derelict. There's nobody there, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
cheap to have a studio there, and the weather was great, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, you get that sense. I don't know if you've driven through California. Um,
well, I did the road trip Pacific Highway to San Fran afterwards.
okay,
Worst decision of my life.
again, sorry,
I did the sort of road
highway. It
trip.
was the what of your life?
So one of the worst decisions, probably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's very a very sort of first world problem thing to say, but you know, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You know, I
No.
thought for years that was going to be, you know, maybe where I thought I'd settle up, but it certainly wasn't for me when I did it.
No, So have you got a US passport as well?
No. In terms of like what I was saying about being similar,
Expat.
yeah, I grew up in. I was born in Dubai. Grew up in South Africa.
Ah, yeah,
Lived,
yeah, yeah. Sorry.
lived
Yes.
in Geneva. You know, lived in some weird places, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but not military kid though. My it was just my dad's job. He was you know, marketing dude, so not as cool as Air Force, but yeah.
I don't know. I don't know which is cooler. Like, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
yeah, I would never settle there. I've got dual citizenship. Um,
really.
so does Neve. And my sister, I think, at one point, my sister would have happily moved and lived in the
Really?
US. She did for a while. Her and her husband, he's English, but we moved here when I was 3, and anytime I've spent any length of time in the US, which is not a lot, like I've found it to be so uncaring.
Yeah, well, it does seem that way. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of
And it pervades everything they do, and there's a and I this is not to take away from the achievement of anyone or anything, like, but I
yeah,
found it to be, in comparison to this society, which I find actually to be quite, and I know I'm biased, but to actually
yeah,
be quite supportive.
yeah,
I find that very ruthless, and that kind of scares me when I'm there. I don't feel comfortable.
yeah.
I've never thought of settling there.
Yeah, I found like I had no urge when I finally kind of moved back to the UK, and that was actually when I incidentally went to that sixth form, because I've been to schools here for a while, but then I got moved to Switzerland for 2 years.
Right.
When I was like 15 or 16, and that's actually when I started teaching myself guitar and piano, because I was fucking lonely, and I just thought I need some way to like let out. And you can't write songs on the drums unless you're Phil Collins. Still to this day, don't quite understand how he writes songs on the drums, but
He's an anomaly.
but yeah, so I was like, my dad had this like 40 quid Yamaha, I think somebody gave him, and I just started playing it very badly. My sister came and spoke to me in the house, and she was like, listen, you can't play guitar until you know how to play Wild World by Cat Stevens. And I was like, oh, okay, right. So still haven't learned that, but you know, but the album's out, so that's fine. But yeah, so yeah, that was kind of how I started. That's literally how I started writing. I think I probably would have done it before, but it was a life-changing moment like that when I got sort of pulled away from everybody I knew again in my school. I just started a new school, and then you just got all this emotion, all this like raw feeling, especially when you're younger, and that just translates to like just whatever comes out your head, and it's a very creative period, and actually that's probably why, you know, most successful artists are kind of around just past that age, you know, 20 years
And the other
old.
thing is, you don't see boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't see like every my every waking hour is kind of somewhat in some way devoted to how do I cross the next boundary.
Yeah,
I need to
yeah. You're
get
kind of
that.
set in your
Yeah,
realm, which
yeah,
is kind of
exactly.
disappointing.
Yeah,
Disappointing.
and responsibility creates that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's not enough like bizarre twists in life past past a certain point. I don't know. Things
Yeah,
just kind of plateau, and actually the weird elements of the world, like as you're coming into it, and yeah, you're it's actually, do you know what it is? It's probably because it's the first time you're ever experiencing those things when you're about that age.
absolutely.
Whether that could be like financial struggles, it could be love, it could be jealousy, it could be anything,
Everything
hatred.
tastes new
Like,
on the tongue.
yeah, and actually, you're really, really into that. So to be able
Yeah.
to write stuff is
Yep.
is a
And you've got the brashness of this idea that you're actually a pivotal part of the world.
yeah,
Because for so long you've been told so, like, and naturally so, right? Because you've been nurtured by your family or whatever.
yeah,
You
yeah,
you are the center of your own universe at that point. So you think that the things that you have to say are dramatic and meaningful, and they are. Like, I'm not taking away from that, but you have that confidence to believe in it just instinctively.
yeah,
And that's something that also responsibility and paranoia and hardship and stuff drill out of you over time.
yeah.
Like that feeling that there is a new horizon over each sort of dawning sky is something you quickly divest yourself of, like, quite quickly. But
Yeah, it's
which
very
is why it's nice to rediscover, like, I think
yeah,
that there are ways to still get that.
yeah.
Like, there are
Well,
new
I
horizons.
I think it's I think to be able to, yeah, from the start, I've always been very happy to record stuff because now I can I can go back and I can look at
Yeah, yeah,
stuff that I had in 2008 and I look at it and I go, wow,
yeah,
what funny old world that I go
yeah,
back and I look at it. And I always feel compelled to make a music video whenever I never it doesn't happen probably 9 times out of 10. Every
mhm,
song I write, I don't know about you. I don't know if you feel the same, but every song I write, I go, actually, this is the best one I've written.
of course.
And and actually, I'm going to do a music video to this one. And you basically become your own record label because I went down. I live in still live in London, and I went down this week. I dragged my girlfriend down to Richmond Park with me, and we waited for the
Right.
sunset. And I was thinking, I don't want it to be like a sort of soppy video, but I saw something else online. And I thought, how do you make a music video on a budget? And I've done that before, but I'm still in the same place,
Yeah,
but yeah, just like finding interesting things, and basically you've got to bring your music to other people in a way that's engaging. If that's via video, then that's via video, or whether
yeah,
that's like, whatever. And I think, at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with the music, that's the most important thing. But there is a really, really, really great pleasure to be had from other people listening to it and enjoying it. And
yeah, yeah,
I think deep down, that is something that is wanted. So
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
scratches the itch.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, more and more so.
So you got till November.
Got till November, and yeah, I'm up to episode 20 on the YouTube sort of 10-minute videos. And the
And
first,
what are you going to do in November? Is there going to be a launch party?
no idea, haven't
You
even
should.
thought about it.
I think
Uh,
you should, mate.
yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of those things, like, that's not that long away. Like, at the moment, I don't think there'd be anyone to launch it to. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm just interested in what, I'm interested in every part of it. And then, and then it'll probably there'll be that release in November, and then I don't know, another 12 months later, another one. Like, I don't
Yeah.
see any reason to not, if I can build a frequency of creation into my life, sure, it's going to peter out at some point, but might as well ride it until it does, kind of thing.
It's something that I've that's actually kind of part of why what I'm doing now is because of what I'm doing. So I put that album out on Friday, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's done, probably better than I thought it probably would.
Nice.
didn't think anyone was going to probably listen to it. And I've been pleasantly surprised. So with Spotify, I use it's on Spotify is like my main. Spotify is what I look at as my sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Is my gauge of like my success of music now.
Okay.
And I use an app called Spotify for Artists,
Right.
which gives you kind of direct data on you can see if someone's listening to it right now, and that's really nice. Like I could just open the app and I go, oh, hang on a minute, there's somebody listening to my song.
Right. Yeah. But you can't publish to Spotify.
Yeah, it's on Spotify right now. My songs are on Spotify to listen to, iTunes, everywhere.
So, but that's through a distributor, or are you doing that yourself?
No, so it's through distributor, but you have access to everything yourself through your app thing. So here, like, this is my one now after 4 days or whatever, and I've got, I don't know, 3,419. I don't know if you can see that.
It's a bit whited out, but it's fine. Oh yeah, I can see it. Wow.
And it's live, and then I can see live. There's no one listening to now, obviously. Why would they?
Right.
But yeah, it's really fun, and it basically just gives you like good insight, and that's what I use as my gauge of like who's listening to it.
Yep.
And yeah, to pitch stuff on Spotify, basically if you write a song, this is everything I've learned now, and I've got a friend who actually manages Little Mix.
Okay.
In the biz, and yeah, pitching to like Spotify playlist is a really good way to grow an audience.
Right.
You probably, to actually get a song approved by the middleman, takes like 2 weeks for them to say, oh, actually it's not plagiarized, whatever, and then it gets submitted to the actual platforms.
Okay.
If it's your first song, then you haven't probably got a chance in hell of actually submitting it to a playlist, because your account on Spotify hasn't even begun, because you haven't got any songs on there. So once you've got a song on there, then you can start to play around. But yeah, the problem with my stuff is that I'm very like impatient. So if I write a song, if I could choose, I'd have it up there tonight, but I can't. So if you've got patience, my what I've been told, but I've not actually done myself, is probably push it back a month. And then you can submit it to a playlist. As in, when I say push it back a month, I mean submit it, but push the release date back a month.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, it means that
have it done a month in advance.
It means that you can submit it to a playlist, and then if a curator sees it, then there's time for them to see it, to then put it on a playlist, which gives you millions of people to expose it to.
Yeah.
But that's Spotify, which is a really powerful platform for musicians now.
So what distributor do you use?
Who am I using? So I was using Ditto Music,
right?
And then I watched, and on their website it's like Ed Sheeran used to use Ditto Music and all this stuff, and it's just probably true, but it was it's just capitalizing on the fact that he probably put a song on Ditto Music, and it's and you don't put your songs on there, but they basically I watched a YouTube video on it, like what's the best whatever I think we would call it, but it's effectively you're an independent artist and you're using a middleman label or whatever. And I watched a YouTube video on it like 3 weeks ago, what's the best one to use, and all this stuff came out about Ditto Music from people that are actually not top of the range, but reasonable range. And it was basically like, they don't reply to your emails. They don't actually, like, you're not able to take out your money. And that's true, because I had stuff on there that I really didn't make any money. We're talking like under 100 quid,
right?
Something from a few years ago. And I couldn't take it out. It was my money and I couldn't take it out. So I sent them an email to support and I said, hi, look, I've read all this stuff and watched some new videos on you guys. And actually, I've got some new stuff. I don't know whether to put it through you or not, because I'm a bit like concerned that basically you're not really.
You're ripping me off. Yeah.
And they never replied.
Oh, really?
So so I just went, okay, screw it, I'm not going to use that. So I found this Swedish company and they're called Amuse. It's an app, and you can use it on the desktop as well.
It's called what?
It's called Amuse.
Okay.
And AMUSE, and for me, I think it's basic. I don't really get very good sort of data from them, but I get 100% royalty. Some of these
Right.
places take 15%, maybe more,
Right.
and you'll pay like an annual subscription. These guys, it is free, they'll all say they're free, but depending on how many releases you have, for me, I know that now to actually get the best out of a Spotify algorithm, you need to release something every month.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's why after that album I did, I'm not going to do another album. I'm just going to do singles
Okay.
because when Spotify recognizes that you're an active musician,
Yeah.
apparently it helps. I don't know how, but I'm going to try it. It makes sense, I guess.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it's the same kind of thing that would drive YouTube or would drive anything, right? If you're posting,
Yeah.
it's one of the things.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I figure like I think I've got six subscribers at the moment, but everything I've watched about YouTube is, it's got the frequency is what's key.
Frequency is key, and the same for podcasts. That's what I mean. Obviously, that's why we're going to speak anyway. But as I said, I've had a podcast for 2 years. We weren't doing any frequency, and we made a commitment this year to do frequent, like once a month. Sorry,
Right.
once a week. Sorry, once a week, and that helped. It did. I could see that helping. But the reason why we've actually grown from probably 50 people listening to 800 is in the last 3 weeks or whatever, is because with Podbean, I was part of loads of forums and communities on Facebook of podcasting. And I saw a post that said something like, "Oh, hi, look, I'm looking for promote," or something about it. I don't know.
Right.
And then a rep or somebody from Podbean wrote on the comment, "We actually we'll actually put you as a featured podcast if you're a premium customer," and all that means is like $14 a month or something, which means you have like unlimited data in terms of like how much you upload and stuff. And I do that. It's actually worth it, and it gives you good stuff. So anyway, I saw her email. I copied her email, and I emailed her myself, and I said, and this is like 6 months ago, and I said, "Hi, can we promote our podcast on Featured?" And she was like, "Yeah, we can book you in, but there's like a 6-month queue." And we said, "Fine." Well, I said, "Yeah, fine." And so I forgot about it. And then 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we got featured. So if you go on the homepage of Podbean, yeah, we were on there for 2 weeks, and
Right.
we went from 50 followers to 800 followers. And
Wow. Okay.
and yeah, so it does help to have a middleman that might do that. And that's why I would personally say Podbean is actually quite good. Maybe the other ones do something and it's worth looking at. But
Well, I mean, I completely. So like, it's weird. It's one of those things that like I've got the whole, like, always in my mind from the moment I kind of listened to Dan Carlin. I don't know if you listen to Hardcore History, the Dan Carlin podcast.
no, I can see Joe Rogan in the background though.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, since I listened to the Dan Carlin podcast, I was like, that's fucking awesome. Like, what a great fucking thing to just have,
Yeah.
that kind of shit. So whilst I've been building all of this up in the back of my mind, it's always been like, I want to do, ultimately, if I think even more than, to a certain extent, more than the music creation, and that is my tool.
Yes.
Have this kind of, as we said earlier. Yeah. And so in the back of my mind, those 10-minute videos are just me kind of vlogging, like you said earlier. The goal is to create some kind of meaningful content other than the music that kind of promotes it, but also is just organic, like, which is why I've been starting to do with James.
Yeah, I think it's quite clear that the way it works now is like you've got all these mediums that you can apply it to, and actually, if you've got the content to do it, I mean, I should probably think about doing it. I think you've done a really, really good job actually of actually making your own style of it, and I like it. I think it's great, and I think it's very clever. I think I wish I'd done that for my last project. So I think it's the right thing to do, because you are going to build interest from one of those places. And and the worst thing about it, or the worst, depends if you think it's the worst thing about it, but actually, we're not realistically, we don't do this for riches. So it purely is passion, and that's the best thing about it in a way, because it doesn't matter what happens to it. But then, if something happens to it, then great. But if not, I'm very happy to have done it. So
that's the key thing. That's exactly right. The key thing for me is that, yeah, there's a possibility. One of the things, there was an interesting, actually, speaking of Dan Carlin and you pointing out Joe Rogan, there's a very interesting podcast with Joe Rogan and Dan Carlin. They both came to the market at the same time.
really,
But Dan Carlin makes this, yeah. And if any interest in history at all, I would encourage you. Like, the Dan Carlin podcast is fucking immense. Like, they're proper, like, you get into like 4-hour like audio book like level of shit on pretty much any subject you might be interested in. Like, anyway, but and what Dan Carlin makes this point, like, there's however many people use the internet, I can't remember what the figure is right now, but the number is so fucking fantastically high. But the market itself is so huge. Like, you only really need like 0.00000001 or something along those lines to have an impact that actually then creates a self-perpetuating like motion of growth from it, because it's just an organic thing that if you find a niche audience, well, your niche might be tiny, but in relative terms, it could be as tiny as fuck, but it's still a big piece of a huge fucking pie. So, that's why the podcasting thing always stuck with me. It was kind of like, yeah, that's a very good fucking point. Like, I might know shit, and my music, like, even to the point where actually it wouldn't matter if my music was in some way shit. There's bound to be a big enough pie in there of people who really like shit music.
Well, funnily enough,
I have some audience.
The guys that I watch on YouTube about like production and like techniques and stuff and how to record stuff, majority of the time, their music fucking sucks, and that's my opinion. And I watch it, and it's like, Christ, that is absolutely atrocious. But those guys are actually probably, sound engineers, and they're just good at that. They're very clever at like capturing sound and making things sound tight.
So who are you watching on YouTube? Who do you like to dig into?
Do you know what? I don't actually follow anyone specifically. I just I'll type in the issue that I've got, and then it will come up with my
video it is,
answer. I literally don't have a Bible on that. I don't. It'll just come to me. If I experience an issue, I'll type it in. I had one at one point. I don't even know their name, and I couldn't get it fixed. But I was trying to like snap up and like tighten my audio, and there's a thing called audio warp on Cubase. You can quantize like MIDI files. So I don't know if you use keyboard, and I can see one on the right there, but is that a MIDI keyboard? Yeah. So when you play your MIDI keyboard, do you quantize that, or do you leave that?
So far I've purposefully not quantized anything. Yeah.
So I've learned now that I went through a phase of never recording to a beep or a click. Like when I first started, I never did that. I just went completely like whatever. And then the songs, as you probably, if you want, you can listen to on YouTube, Everett and Higgins.
I twice now. I will go.
2008.
Yeah.
2008. And you can tell that they're not really. There's areas, and you're going, "Oh, is it fast? Oh, it's no, yeah," and it's not quite there. And then we were like, "Okay, we've got to record to a click." So we started recording to a click, and that was probably not even. We haven't got that documented. But anyway, I learned that recording to a click is great, and then I started writing obviously at home, which meant that you don't have enough instruments, so then you rely more on like MIDI sound than you do real sound. And I was quantizing MIDI sound, but I wasn't quantizing audio sound, because you can't quantize audio sound, but you can. But I didn't know how to do that. And then you end up sounding like not kind of organic and not very nice. So I've only very recently kind of realized and appreciated actually that yes, record to a click, but really you kind of want to try and not use any quantize, even on your MIDI files or whatever it is, because then it gives it that real sound. And actually what also taught me that was because I don't have I've got a drum kit, but it's at my parents' house, and I live in London. I haven't got enough space for a drum
Sure.
kit. Even if I did, I'd probably get evicted.
Yeah.
And ba- basically, yeah, I've recently really got back into like my 70s drum sounds, either like John Bonham, Ringo Starr, like any classic drum sounds, like that sort of dampened texture of a snare drum. I don't know what it is, but and also the fact that the sound is recorded on tape is a big difference.
Yeah.
And I bought recently for like 30 quid the J37 plugin, which is a plug-in copy of the tape recorder from Abbey Road Studios, and it's actually really good.
Waves, the Waves one.
Yeah, Waves. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got. Yes, I've got that. Yeah,
It's good, man. I love it. I love it. I use that all the time. I use it all the time.
Okay, so that's interesting. So before I lose this idea, then, so I've just discovered the producer kits on Logic. I don't know if you've seen the producer kit on Logic.
No.
So essentially, you can like any of the stuff there's virtual drummers already built into Logic.
Yes. Yeah.
But generally what you do is you just pull it through and you create a single track with a all the transients, but it's the whole drum kit together.
Yeah.
Like mixed. But the producer kits actually allow you to break that all out. So you've got then individual tracks for the snare in, snare out, snare top, snare bottom, drum in, drum out, like kick in, kick out, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's interesting. So in that scenario, would you put the tape machine on the bus, the master bus?
No, I read that you put it on every track, and that's what I've done, because within the actual plugin, it has its own specific. It has every single specific like setting. So it has one for like wide guitar. It has one for bass. It has one for piano. It has one for
the presets.
Yeah, they're presets. Yeah.
Right.
And I read that you just should apply it to each track, which makes more sense because the drum sound, I want it to sound like what the drums did in Abbey Road Studios. And here's an interesting point as well, by the way. And this is actually very, very interesting. Like seriously interesting. I don't know about you. Are you recording your own drums or not?
So I don't play drums. So no, I'm using those. I'm either creating,
or you're using the MIDI boards. Yeah.
either using the virtual drummer and turning it into MIDI and playing around with it, but I don't have any experience with drums. I rely on James, who plays the drums.
Like that or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, or I'm trying to play them organically on the keyboard and just layering the MIDI up.
That's what I do, yeah. So, but so what I did was like, I'm a drummer from the start, actually. So I was like, oh, fuck, I can't keep fucking doing this. I've got to bring that sound or whatever. And I went on a website called Fiverr, Fiverr.
Yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
And I just thought, you know what, this song I think needs real drums. It was very 70s sounding.
Yeah.
And I was very like, it was like a week of just listening to John Bonham isolated tracks. And actually going back just to back what I was saying about quantizing. Mm-hmm. Which is this is kind of my sort of own self-discovery, was that when I took songs, so you can go on YouTube and you can download an isolated track, not every time, but there's about 70% of your favorite 70 songs. Like there's a lot of Ringo Starr isolated tracks. There's about 5 or 6 I found of John Bonham. And you can still hear like a bit of background recording, because actually what they did was they recorded it all at the same time, which then kind of adds to the thing here. But basically the songs aren't all fully in tempo. They're not. They drift, and there was a thing that Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones. And it's called the Charlie Watts tempo, and it kind of applies to myself, where he's a guy that plays and he's whatever, but actually he speeds up a lot and he doesn't stick to his tempo like sort of Ginger Baker would. He drifts a bit, and I certainly play like that, and it feels organic. But then when you apply quantize, it makes no sense. So I realized actually these guys weren't playing to a click. They were just very well practiced band.
Yeah, they had the whole the whole unit had a pocket.
Yeah, but they all played live pretty much at the same time as
Oh
well.
yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense that you're not doing it separately, which makes it really difficult, I think, in essence. So, but basically, what I did was I went on Fiverr. I found this guy who lives in LA, not deliberately in LA, but he just lived in LA. Who was a professional session musician for the drums. He played with like Nora Jones, all these like. I mean, she's not exactly the icon
You're
of.
playing on Nora Jones's band. You're a fucking good drummer.
You must be a good drummer, but there were others on there that I don't know their name. I did know their name, but I can't remember them. And I sent him a message with my song, and I said, "Look, so can you help me with this? I want a '70s sounding drum kit." And he was like, "Mate, got you. This sounds exactly what I can do." And then that cost me 80 quid. Arguably, it was really good. But then, like, you can tell there's like subtle differences in between, like breaks between a chorus or a bridge. You know, like a sort of, I don't know, like just little things that you can't really do on a keyboard unless you go back in and then do it.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was actually great. And then I've done that twice now. And the last one I did on a song that I wrote last week, I was just on Reddit. I've just joined Reddit about 6 months ago.
Okay.
There's a group on Reddit called Songwriters, and this guy just posted, "Guys, I'll play and record a drum track for you for free. Just message me." And I thought, bullshit. And I went on it, and he plays at Abbey Road Studios, professional drummer, full-on professional drummer. And I had a recorded drum track within 2 days, perfect drum track, 2 days.
So did you write the drum track, send it to him, and he played it, or you sent him the song with a vague idea of what you wanted to do?
I sent him the song with my pre-recorded organic drum key thing that you do as well.
Yeah.
And I said, look, that's what I've got in my head, which was basically what I meant was that's exactly kind of what I want. But I,
yeah, okay, fine.
But I was like, that's what I got in my head, and I really, because it was free, and I was like, look, I really appreciate whatever you give.
And then you credit him on the album, presumably.
He was just like, yeah, no problems. Can you just follow my page? Can you, write a review on Google Business for me? And I was like, absolutely. And I'll credit him and I'm going to use him again. I will pay for him again, actually, because I didn't pay for him, but I don't know how much he costs, but I didn't pay for him.
So he was just putting that out there as like a marketing.
It must be marketing. It must, because he's also got a YouTube channel, so he's just probably
yeah.
Because I had
to
do
it once for free.
Yeah, I doubt he'll do it again.
Yeah,
because I asked him. I asked him at the end.
I was thinking in my head, oh my god, this is the fucking Shangri-La.
No. If you message him, he'll do you one for free for sure.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
But you probably got to get.
It's a one-shot pony.
You got to get in there. Yeah, you got to get in there now. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, in fact, what's come from that, I think, actually shows I've joined communities. So one of them, I got a podcast promotion for free. And the other, I've got a drummer for free.
Right. Okay.
So actually, there is a bit of weight in kind of putting yourself in communities.
Yeah, I've heard. That's another thing I've heard as well. That creating any kind of organic community is great, but that's really tricky. Actually, there's ways of entering places where there's a lot of fucking nice people who are just out there to sort of talk about the shit they're doing, and they're happily to, if they like it, they'll talk about your shit too.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you wouldn't have a conversation like this, for hours, if you didn't enjoy it. That's just simply as it is.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree 100%. I think it's. Well, look, I've enjoyed this. Like, absolutely. I'd happily do this again.
100%. Yeah, whenever you want, mate. I'm around whenever you need.
Yeah.
I'm away. Well, I'm going surfing in Cornwall from tomorrow, but. I can't surf, but I'll see how I get on.
Is it your first time surfing, or have you tried before?
No, I once sat on a surfboard and it sunk because it was too heavy for it when I was about 14. But yeah, so I would love to obviously have a chat again, and in fact, you can jump on our podcast, and I'll be happy to on my Instagram, mate. I would love to. I've got, nothing major, but I've got about, 4,000 people on there. I'd love to chuck your stuff on there or whatever. We'll work it out.
Well, I'd love to reciprocate. I don't have anything to
No,
push
but
back
I haven't got
that
anything
way.
either. I haven't got anything either. But it's all about like
4,000 is
multi.
4,000 more than me. So
Yeah, but they're not really good followers. I only get about 30 likes fucking photos.
oh. But but the same. Like if anything, like yeah, I've enjoyed I haven't got the album yet, but I'll get it. And like I've enjoyed everything I've listened so far. But the same thing.
Where whereabouts are you? I keep on forgetting where you're based. Because like, mate, we'll definitely grab a beer at some point.
Halfway between Oxford and Bicester.
Oh,
So like
okay.
45 minutes out of Marylebone.
I've got a car now, so.
Wow, Will. What kind of car?
Hey, music, baby. No, it's my Grand Golf.
Ah, nice. Very nice.
Not allowed to drive it anymore, so.
Right. Okay, take it over the ownership. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. Like anytime. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll drop you a message, mate. But yeah, I think absolutely fucking fantastic stuff. I honestly love it, and
I appreciate that, man.
One thing I'll say about the stuff that I heard from you, probably a couple of years ago now, is I don't know where you correct me on this, but I sounded very like I loved there was a very much an emphasis on. I think it was quite Led Zeppelin-y. I thought kind of like the way that your chord progression was. I thought I don't know. Is that what's your main inspiration? That's what I took.
Simon and Garfunkel through the Stone Roses to kind of Led Zeppelin, and then beyond to like the Black Crowes, and then to wherever the fuck after that, if I'm honest. But that I would say that would be the sort of pathway through. I always had.
I like all of those apart from the Black Crowes.
Again, sorry.
I said I like all of those apart from the Black Crowes.
Yeah, I mean, I the Southern rock, the Black, I just love fucking Remedy. It was in my blood, and when I was 18 years old. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those ones, along with Guns N' Roses, if I'm perfectly honest with you. Like,
oh right,
but definitely Stone Roses, Simon and Garfunkel, Stone Roses, and then beyond. But so, I've been saying like one of the last video I put up actually. I've done a little like musical interlude in it where it's like a just a riff. Yeah, and
what is that?
That's an amalgamation of a couple of old songs, kind of. But I had this idea of doing like and I've called it Reef because it reminds me of like the band Reef, like from the 90s.
We do this. Send me on text all your like things or whatever for your podcast. Let's have a chat like next couple of like tomorrow, whatever it takes. We'll do it 10 minutes. We'll actually set your podcast up and we'll get it out there.
Okay.
And then like I can do like I use Premiere Pro because I went to film school. I got into film. Okay. I'm nifty at that stuff is what I'm saying. And I'll just help you out, mate. And we'll create like a little intro for you or whatever, something. And then.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I mean, I've got, you've probably seen, I've got like artwork already to use.
Yeah. But we can make it like a bit more sort of engaging is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I'll be up for that. So yeah, if you go onto if you watch the YouTube videos, there's like there is a kind of title sequence. If you get like into the first, so pretty much the artwork is on there and it's on the end of each video. So if you look on the channel that's there, I can give you access to all of those bits and pieces. I've got them as like an MP4 file that I can just send to you, like already in video.
Text me the stuff. We'll jump on a call and we'll get it done, and then let's jump on another video. And I'll get you on the old poddy, and we'll promote your one, and we'll get it all sorted.
Oh, man, that's cool. That's awesome. All right,
man. And yeah, music wise, mate, let's catch up because I would love to hear like whatever
Yeah. And what I'll do is I'll put a little intro on this and then post it on my YouTube channel, and then I'll send you the link as well.
Yeah, sweet. Good.
Cool, man. Awesome.
Mate, great to speak to you, brother. And I'll speak to you soon.
See you soon.
All right, Kev. Catch you later, brother. Bye, mate.